What up, everybody? Carolina Jackpot coming at you. It's Friday afternoon. That means it's October 12th, 2018, and a big weekend of college football on the horizon. I've already made my picks against the spread, which if you watch that video, and you should be watching those videos every week because you get some very good information from those videos. I'll link it down in the description box below in this video if you have not seen that yet. Already had one of those games take place last night, and unfortunately, Carolina Jackpot missed out on that one. I gave you the wrong info. TCU did not cover the spread. They actually lost to Texas Tech, which is kind of an upset when you consider the fact that Texas Tech was playing with their backup quarterback. But that's what it is. Moving on to this weekend. I got three games in particular I want to take a look at. I've already made my picks on these games, so if you watch that video, you know what my picks are against the spread on these guys. But I want you to take a look at these three. Number one, I want you to take a look at Miami. On the road, they're laying six and a half, against the Virginia Cavaliers. Miami, of course, coming off of kind of a subpar performance, many would say, against their arch rival Florida State. Just barely won that game, 28-27. In fact, they had to come from about 20 points down to do so. So they showed a little bit of grit and moxie in doing that. But what's more disturbing is the fact that they fell behind Florida State by that much. Florida State has been awful all year long. And you'll have Hurricane fans on here saying, well, it's because it's such a tightly contested rivalry. And 14 out of the last 15 years, it's been a one TD game, but I don't want to hear none of that. Florida State has been bad this year. They've been really bad. You guys should not have been involved in a close game against them. And can that carry over into this week's game against Virginia? This is a game opponent that you're taking on, and it's a road game. And it's a night game. You know how that goes. That's not really one of your bigger venues in the ACC, Scott Stadium, but when it gets full, and it gets rocking. I remember watching back in 1990 when you could only watch like maybe 3 or 4 football games all weekend. I remember CBS had Virginia, who was, I believe, ranked number 1 at the time, against Georgia Tech, who I believe was ranked number 2. And Georgia Tech actually hit a game-winning field goal there in that stadium. That place was packed. They have an end zone that's kind of like the one at Clem Dump where you can just sit there because it's grass. I mean, the place was totally full. I think it holds maybe 60,000. There had to be like 65, 66,000 people there. It was an electric atmosphere for the time. I'm envisioning something like that tomorrow night because it's been a long time since Virginia has had a winning record, and they have welcomed a ranked opponent into that stadium with a legitimate chance at winning. Do I think that they're going to win the game? Probably not, but you got to look at it. Miami really only started clicking when they put in N'Kosi Perry at the quarterback position. Before N'Kosi took over, I mean, they were pretty bad. One could argue that, well, we put up 77 points against Savannah State. It's Savannah State. You didn't look good in your opener against LSU. So I think this is the kind of spot where, a Mark Richt could definitely be pulled. On the road at Virginia, and you also got to look at the fact that they've beaten you there 2 of the past 3 times you guys have tangled there. Of course, you got a little bit more talent now. But Mark Richt is going to pull a Mark Richt at some particular point in time. He almost pulled a Mark Richt against Virginia last year. They wore you out for that entire first half. Then I guess after halftime, something clicked. At the time, y'all were ranked number 2. They were killing you at halftime. You came back. You ended up winning that game pretty comfortably in the end. But just take a look at that one. Virginia could definitely take down the Canes tomorrow night in Charlottesville. Another one I want you to take a look at, and no, I'm not stirring anything up with the Gator fans, not stirring anything else up with the Gator fans, I should say. We had our differences this past weekend, and I'm just going ahead and say it because, I'm sorry, my nose is itching for some reason today, so I got to keep rubbing it. I said it was an old man football game between y'all and LSU, and, a lot of y'all got really mad at me. That video is crazy because it has almost 200 dislikes on it right now. And those aren't troll dislikes. You really didn't like what I had to say. You really didn't like me. And I'm sorry. A lot of times college football fans, especially college football fans, they tend to not like facts. They don't like to hear facts. I don't like it when people say, your coach, Will Muschamp, couldn't win at Florida with better talent than what he's able to get at South Carolina. Or your quarterback, Jake Bentley, throws too many interceptions and he's garbage and he gets the deer in the headlights look against Clemson. Okay, some of those are facts, and they make me mad when I hear them on Twitter and on other forms of social media. So I lash out. Same thing with the Florida fans. They didn't like to hear that. I said it was a good defensive struggle between two great defensive teams. Okay, this wasn't the 85 Bears playing the Pittsburgh Steel Curtain, all right? I'll give it to you. You both have decent defenses for 2018 on the SEC level. But are they elite? No. Really, your defenses looked better because of the fact that your offenses were totally inept. I do not know who was playing that left tackle position on offense for LSU, but I hope he was replaced this week in practice because he was absolutely terrible. That poor Joe Burrow kid, I mean, I don't see how he didn't leave that field in a stretcher. I mean, he was hit from behind, I know, 6, 7 times. I watched that whole Knicks game yesterday. Terrible, terrible, terrible blocking by LSU. Florida ends up getting the win there. You got Vanderbilt, 12 o'clock tomorrow on the SEC Network, I believe it is. You're a 7-point favorite. Florida is laying 7 points on the highway against Vanderbilt. Here's another spot. You came off of an emotional win, and you're looking forward to that bye week. I'm pretty sure, and if memory serves me correctly, I got to pull out the reference guide sometimes when I'm looking at this stuff because things just, I try to do my research beforehand, but, you know, things just pop into my head. During the videos, sometimes I actually have to go reference and look up. So on your schedule, and I don't have your schedule pulled up right in front of me. Yeah, you got a bye week coming up next week that you're looking forward to. And then you got Georgia. So this is a classic example of what they call a sandwich spot. You got Vanderbilt. They're a dog, but they're a barking dog. Vanderbilt has not played that bad this year. They're 3-3 right now. They started off pretty hot. They were 2-0. They went on the road. They almost beat Notre Dame. Everybody's like, wow, man, they almost beat Notre Dame. But then Notre Dame made a change to quarterback position. They look a lot more impressive now with Ian Book at the helm than they did with Wimbush. But the fact that Vanderbilt went out there in front of 80,000 Catholics and almost pulled the upset, hey, that's still a feather in their cap. Vandy is a tough team. I almost called him daggum Jay Cutler. Kyle Shermer has thrown for 1,300 yards this year. Not a bad quarterback. Not a bad quarterback at all. He's a senior this year. And they can move the ball. Trouble is they have trouble scoring because they'll make some mistakes and they won't be able to do anything in the red zone. If you watch their game against Georgia last week, they did really well between the 20s against Georgia. For that 60-yard stretch from 20-yard line to 20-yard line, they moved the ball at will against Georgia, especially in the first half. But they couldn't convert. When they got in the red zone, they were forced to go for field goals. Or there was one instance there, they went for it on 4th and short. They didn't make it. Vanderbilt is tough. They are not a bad team, and they think that they can beat you guys. They have it in their head that they're going to win this game and upset you guys. Got news for you. They ain't going winless in the SEC. Well, they've got Tennessee coming up anyway, so we can just go on ahead and shove that out the window. They're not going winless in the SEC. Derek Mason is a good coach. He knows what to do. He has a defensive mind, so he knows what to do, especially when he's facing a team that really doesn't have a very good offense. And you guys don't have a very good offense. I don't care what you say about Felipe Franks being some kind of Tim Tebow clone because he can throw a jump pass like Tim did back in 2009. It's not the same thing. You guys, your running game it's okay. Your offense is middle of the road and mediocre. It's enough to get by, but it's not enough to perform against elite teams. And Vanderbilt's going to be pumped up for this one. They're going to have a large crowd there. I don't think there's going to be a large following of Gator fans there. in the Vanderbilt Stadium. You guys, you travel pretty decently, but that's kind of a long trip. Look for it to be a sold-out crowd or near sold-out crowd. Look for the Vanderbilt people to be loud, raucous, and I think that they can pull the upset against you guys. Do I think they're going to pull the upset? No, I don't, but look for it to be a possibility. Last one I want to talk about of the day, Georgia Bulldogs. Going on the road, Death Valley, 3:30 CBS game against the Bayou Bengals. Now, I know LSU wanted this game at nighttime. They wanted it bad at nighttime, but it didn't happen. So you're forced to deal with that. The fact that the game's on the road still makes it hard. Death Valley, LSU is a hard place to play, unless your name is Troy. But that has nothing to do with 2018, does it? So we're going to continue to move on. LSU last week, they played good enough to win. You played good enough to win. You gave up a pick six there at the end, despite the fact that, once again, as aforementioned, your left tackle can't block, and your quarterback, now, given the poor guy, he's not able to elude pressure because he ain't no dual threat type guy, okay? He just ain't. He's been serviceable this year. You're running back to Brosette kid. He looks okay. He could be, well, he's not going to be a Darius Geist or Leonard Fournette, but he's all right. He's all right. Your defense, I believe last night on the live stream, Uncle Lou said you had an elite secondary. You don't have an elite secondary. You have one good player in that secondary. I was looking at some stats. South Carolina was actually like 13th or 14th in pass defense. That's nationwide, and LSU something like 50th. So how that makes them elite, I don't know. But, okay, for the purposes of what he said, they're okay. Georgia, I mean, talented at pretty much all positions. They are struggling this week on the defensive line from what I heard. They got some injuries there. They're really good at spreading the ball around. With the running game, you know, they've rushed for a ton of yards this year, but not one single back has a whole ton of yards. That's because they are really spreading it out good. You know, Jake Fromm has an off day. They got a Justin Fields who's ready to come in. He's a capable backup. But Fromm's 12 TDs, 2 interceptions. He's thrown for about 1,300 yards, I think, so far this year. He's getting the job done. Guy gets better and better every week, in my opinion. So this is going to be a hard one. It's a hard spot for LSU, but you have a situational thing here. You have to win this game. If you have any shot of winning the SEC West, if you want any shot of making the college football playoff, and albeit right now you're ranked 13th, you were ranked number 5 before that loss to Florida, I don't think you're hitting in. I think that of all the teams out there that did have a chance to get in, you are the least likely to get in. But if you win this game convincingly and you run the table, you beat Alabama, you win the SEC championship game, you're in. Thing is, if you lose and you continue to run the table out, you beat Alabama, you're still not winning the SEC West because Alabama has to lose 2 games. That's just not going to happen. They could lose to you, and they'd have to lose to somebody else, and it's not happening. So it is a must-win for you guys. It's not a must-win for UGA. What they say it's not a must-win. But, in fact, it really is a must-win for UGA. They need to finish the regular season undefeated, and they win the SEC championship game. Because there's a possibility that you could have Ohio State undefeated. You could have Clemson undefeated. You could have Alabama. Of course, we already mentioned undefeated. West Virginia could be undefeated at the end of the year. Notre Dame is probably going to be undefeated. So there's a lot of chances there for undefeated teams. So you guys need to not be a one-loss team. I don't care how good your resume is. It matters. It really does. So LSU, in my opinion, still has more motivation. I think they can get the job done there. But it's going to take a complete game. It's going to take a perfect game, pretty much in all facets. Your offense and your defense come together as 2 cohesive units. Special teams got to be on point. Everything's got to be on point. Disciplined, hardly no penalties. You guys have got to bring your A++ game if you're going to beat the Georgia Bulldogs. And I'm not a Georgia Bulldog fan by no means, no stretch of the imagination. If you want to go back and look at some of my previous videos, I had some pretty nasty things to say about them before our game. But I do have respect for them, not just because of the fact that they beat us like we stole something. They beat us like a red-headed mule. They beat us like a red-headed stepchild, whatever. Now that you want to use, they beat us up pretty bad. That's not the reason I'm giving them respect. I'm giving them respect with the fact they are undefeated right now in the SEC, and that's hard to do. And their coach, Kirby Smart, he ain't satisfied. He's not satisfied. If you watch his pressers, he's pissed off right now. He don't like the way they're playing. He doesn't like the way they're practicing. He's always looking for opportunities to get better, never satisfied. You got to be like that. You got to have that mentality of I'm going to work harder tomorrow. I'm going to work harder the next day. The next day after that, I'm going to work harder than that. That's a good coach right there. They got a good program. I like the guy. I wish that he had, well, I'm glad he's where he's at. He's doing a good job there. Anyway, that's all what I got to say about that. If I want to rank them in likelihood of happening, number one, the U gets knocked off. Number two, most likely, is that Florida gets knocked off. And number three, most likely, Georgia gets knocked off. I really don't think Georgia's losing this game, but there's always a possibility there. Let me know what you think about it. If you liked the video, hit it with a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, hit it with a thumbs down. Feel free, get tongue-tied. Feel free to share it on Facebook, Twitter, wherever, with your friends, and let them know about how great the Carolina Jackpot channel, and that's what it's about right there, baby. Tomorrow afternoon, 3:30, Texas A&M, going down. I'll see y'all at the ball games. Peace out of here. Spurs up to my toes up. Go Cox. Go Coach Boone.